All right, here we are. There's a new thing on the channel, on the ParVision channel. I can't say I didn't get inspired by, our guest here, BDA Law, to have a discussion of the recent chapter, though though it's not exactly like about the chapter. If you guys are in the live stream, you guys might know where I'm going to go with this. Um but, first and foremost, Brago, how are you doing? How did you like the chapter?
Doing good, bro. I did enjoy this chapter. Uh, I would say a lot more interesting upon reread after reread. But it's Oda's telling us things without really telling us. So one of those low key interesting ones that I like.
Yeah, that's how. Because like I think in the grapevine earlier on, I was hearing like, oh, it was mid or whatever, and so like I was like, all right. I mean, any chapter after we get Saint J Garcia Saturn's
Yeah.
gonna be kind of mid, right? But like you said, like this chapter, I missed on my first read. I missed the whole Pythagoras thing. Like I thought there was just like he saw an explosion. That's what I saw. But then like Chad was like, "Yo, reread this," and so I reread it, and I was like, "Wait a second, like, oh, like he's like next explosion," and then I look
Yeah.
back and I was like, "Oh wait, there's someone behind him walking up on him,"
Yeah.
and all of that. So like, I think there's like many things in this chapter. What would you say this chapter like the thing you reread the most, or like your favorite part of it?
Definitely. Well, not only Kuma's backstory, but Vivi,
Ooh,
right?
yeah,
Uh, it's almost like, how do we get here? And how do you parse what's being said in
right.
regards to, okay, just a couple days ago you were crying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, she's not crying anymore. Does that imply that Cobra is still alive, or she's not crying anymore because she's finally over or dealing better with the fact that her dad is dead, right? So
Yeah.
it's trying to figure out exactly what's going on. Um, there are people speculating that, with big news talking about it that way and talking about the news being entertainment, Cobra didn't actually die, right? It's just him just drumming up interest for his newspaper. So it's it's really intriguing, but also it's like, Vivi, how did you get here?
Oh, you
And
know how she
also,
got here. We know how she got here, bro.
and it's really interesting that I guess Wapple is a fugitive now.
I mean,
You
he
know,
what is his kingdom's name, bro? Like, I'm surprised they let
the
him
evil
in.
black Joe. You know, so
Yeah,
it's weird. It's weird. It's weird. But I'm like, where are we going with this? Like, is Big News? I mean, I never thought Big News was a good guy or a bad guy. I think he was
yeah,
just his like a guy that has his own interests, right?
yeah,
I'm just surprised the world government has let him kind of operate for this long, somewhat unchecked,
right,
right? They did try it, right? And he when they jumped out on him, but it's just like he is just so influential and so powerful, and he could manipulate the news however he sees fit. And it's just that's something you think the world government want to control more. But the thing is, he does things in their favor so much. It's like, all right, we're gonna let him just do his thing. Because even in this one, how he's reporting it, technically it benefits them as opposed to if he had released it the other way, where it's like, well, they're trying to kill Vegapunk,
right.
So it's a give and take, but
Yeah,
yeah, definitely the VV stuff.
yeah. Big News Morgan's. I mean, he's like a YouTuber, right? He's one of us.
Yeah,
He's a content creator.
yeah, he dropped that clickbait. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
like, it isn't about the content; it's about clickbait. It's about entertainment, right? How can I
yeah.
entertain the people?
Yeah, I'm like on the WAPO thing. I think it was interesting because I remember doing a stream. It was either live reaction or stream where, when we got the VV news thing, kind of ran down all the options. A lot of people were saying like, "Oh, she's with Sai, she's with Sabo," all these things. I was like, "Yo, maybe she's with Wapo." But even when I said that out loud, I was like, "Nah, that doesn't make any sense."
A little
And
crazy when you to say it out
yeah,
loud.
and then like now you sit here like, how did she escape? They wouldn't just let her walk out if Cobra's actually detained and killed or whatever. They wouldn't let her just leave, right? But like
Right.
then you think about it like, yo, Wapo. what that mouth do, right? Like he definitely, we might have seen a VV Wapol collab like no other. And I think maybe that's why Oda off screened it, because we maybe don't want to see it. But at the end of the day, like I think what's interesting to me is what the timeline is with Morgans and Vivi being together, right? Because Vivi probably has more of the truth than not. But when we look back at, like, I think it was chapter 956, and when Big News Morgan's got all the info, he was just like, there's a big obituary. There was a almost like there was almost a murder also, so like there was separated, like Cobra
Yeah.
was probably the person who died in that thing, the person who was attacked was probably the Celestial
Uh,
Dragon,
yeah.
and then the news about like the Warlords thing I think was also there too, the vote on the Warlords thing. And then at the end of that conversation, Wapol calls in and says he has a big scoop, and apparently that scoop was Vivi, like he
Was
scooped up
VV?
Vivi like
He literally scooped her up, bro.
yeah, and but the one thing that was missing from there was the kidnapping. At that point, Big News Morgans did not talk about kidnapping, but Vivi was stated to be kidnapped in the newspaper. So now I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, oh, is it that like the headline was Wapol kidnapped Vivi and he just hid Wapol's thing, or did Vivi come and say like, hey, this is what you should say, like instead of like to protect my identity, this is what should happen. And again, it goes back to your point too. It's like, is Cobra actually dead? Because that news hit Morgan's before Vivi apparently was there. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
in terms of her coping with that information, yeah, if she was just crying the other day, it almost wouldn't make sense for her to just be fine with it. But then again, we also know Vivi to be like a more mature, like swallow the
You
pill.
can, yeah, swallow it and move on.
Yeah, and I mean, she went under, like, she was working under Baroque Works, knowing that her life was at threat every single day. Like, she knows how to put up a strong face.
Didn't
Uh,
Igaram die technically?
yeah, yeah, it was off the boat, and then yeah, actually, you're right. I'm like I don't think they knew that he survived until much
Right.
later. But she just
Right.
had to like, all
He
right,
had to eat it, and she
yeah,
moved on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, like Igaram's like basically her mom, I guess,
Yeah.
like at that point, a
Yeah.
caretaker.
Yeah.
So she lost him, and she has
She kept
swallowed the
it
pill.
pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, the Cobra's obviously different, but like I could, if the world's at stake, I could see Vivi swallowing that pill. So
Yeah.
maybe.
For sure.
Yeah, but
For
I do see
sure.
the other way where it's like maybe the Cobra thing was also, the only thing though is like if it's also the Cobra thing that we have to question, then we have to question everything that we learned and we thought of. But
Yeah, it does. It does make you question. I think for us, especially coming off of Wano, we do not like fake out deaths. We're not
yeah,
feeling the fake out deaths.
yeah,
So a
yeah,
lot of people are just hoping, okay, please, not because they don't like Cobra, but it's just like it adds so much more intrigue if he actually is dead. So
yeah. Like I mean,
you know,
and the news, the I guess the main news that we'd have to question afterwards would be the Sabo raid, right? Because they did publish that news, but if that's also false too, then like have we seen Fujitora since? We seen Ryokugu, but we haven't seen, is Fujitora
well, but
boxed up? Like I don't know.
we saw Fujitora. Um, where we saw
I think we saw him
him
at the Reverie,
at
right?
well, we saw him after,
Did
and a lot of people thought he was going after Boy Hancock with Kobe. Remember when we saw him and he was on a ship and he had
I
like a bandage? And a
hmm
lot of people were like, oh, Fujitora's going to Boy Hancock as well. I think he was close to the com belt. I wasn't sure exactly, but
yeah,
we did see him. We did
yeah.
see him.
Well, I mean, and that's actually like a good segue into what I want to talk about today with you, because
Okay.
there's something that I need your expertise on. I've been talking to my community. Every time I bring it up, even my own community is like, "Yo, Par, you gotta chill on that. That's not true." But this chapter, it showed me
Oh
something that I'm
man.
just like, I, how can you not think this? And so, Fujitora and Ryokugu, well, Fujitora mainly on Dressrosa, he was like, oh, like, we're gonna have not Dressrosa at the Reverie. He said like he's pushing for the thing that replaces the warlords, right? The Seraphims, the thing that
Mm-hmm.
replaces the warlords are them. That's what's being abolished. And like we don't know the full extent of the Seraphims even now, right? But like
Yeah.
their power is crazy, and so like the thing that I thought of in this chapter 1074 was the Kumas, the Mark III pacifistas, and just like the level ups like that these things are getting. Like now they have this like bubble shield, which we don't know what it looks like or what how it functions. I know some people think it's like Kuma's bubble, but I don't think it's Kuma's bubble. I think it's goofier than that. I think that these are bubble blowers now. I think these are like Fishman Island bubbles, like those bubble dials and bubble wands, and Vegapunk just is using it as a bubble shield because they had like those kind of functionalities down in Fishman Island. And
Yeah.
so that's the way I see it. But like these, it's Mark III. Like I don't even remember. Dude, like Mark II is the white ones we saw in like the movies or something like that. I
It
guess.
got to be because it's like the third iteration of it. So maybe they give some more explanation, and maybe we've seen one and two, we just haven't noticed the difference, or maybe Kuma, the original Kuma was one, and then those others were two, right? And then this is three, where it's like with all the upgrades and additional things. Um, I do think that shield, people are like, okay, this is how they replace hockey, where
Mm,
they can use it to block things, etc. I want to know the origin of it, like because it's almost scary because then you give them a lot more, a bit more sentience because now they have to choose whether or not they are going to defend, they're going to block, as opposed to just mindlessly just attacking.
mm-hmm.
Now they have a bit more. Okay, I'm a block now, right? I'm
Yeah.
gonna use this ability now. Now it's time to attack. Now it's time. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's a bit more advanced, which we're getting, they're getting close to the Seraphim territory. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it is getting kind of scary.
Yeah, like when because you said it right, like the when we saw Akuma on Sabaody, right? Like it's like okay, there's one, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
we don't even get to know like how many exactly they were. I don't think, but like we saw that there was clearly multiple, and we're like, there are multiple of these.
yeah,
And then when I
yeah.
hit this thing, I said Mark III, but like the guy, I think the guy should have said Mark III 41. Like I was like, wait, and it's not just 41. There's the blank spot for the triple digit. I was like, there's triple digits of these,
Yes,
like,
a lot of them.
and like
It's a
you
lot of
have
them.
to ask yourself like Oda's gonna scale these up. It's not gonna be Sabo Odi pacifistas. It's not gonna be Marineford pacifistas. These are gonna be more absurd, and
Yeah.
they say it's far more advanced than the prototypes used in the Summit War. And it's like how like if the Straw Hats were to run it back right against like one of these, they would be able to take one, right? Like Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, they'd be able to take one, right?
Um. Yeah.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
sure.
Right, right. What
For
about like
sure.
Frankie? What about Frankie, General Frankie? You think General Frankie solos one of these?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What
That
about
is yes.
Chopper? What about Chopper?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
so
I
Straw
think.
Hats are going through it, right?
Yeah.
Where would?
I think even Nami can figure out a way to defeat one.
Okay. All right. So
Usopp is the one that's
Usopp's the scary one, right? We don't know. Like
Usopp's the one that's a little.
but then so then like Nami and whatever they clear the Summit War pacifistas, but these pacifistas they're said to be a lot stronger. We see the Cypher Pole agents, they're not supposed to be that strong, but they're struggling with it obviously, right?
Right.
Like I'm trying to gauge like where these things are at because again, when we got introduced to the first ones, it was like these things are next level. Then
Yeah.
Luffy no diffs it time skip, right? But then essentially the pacifistas get their own time skip. They skip second generation, we get the third one. They have all this extra gear. We don't know what else they have in their stock. Who knows? Maybe Oda even gives them the green blood paramecia stuff too. Not too sure about that. But
Yeah.
the fact that there's 50 of them on this island, that's a force, right? Like that's a force. Not that many people could take 50 of these, right?
Um. No, 50 of them is kind of crazy. Like
Yeah,
that's the Straw Hats, right? That's the Straw Hats, including the Monster Trio and Jinbei. They're going out to stop 50 of these things. And again, we don't know how hockey interacts with this bubble armor, and I'm assuming it's going to be effective enough. But 50 of them is a lot. But it's just we have a gear 5, and so
fair enough.
um,
Yeah,
it makes it so that it's not as intimidating. What makes it scary is that Luffy, you can't really conquer hockey and do anything to these things. But we're just so strong. Like Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, they're each taking. They should take them out with a few hits, if
Right.
not one hit.
Right.
Right? They should
Yeah.
take one, and so they run through 5 each. You know,
Then
it starts getting a little scary for the pacifista. So I think for any regular pirate crew, it's like you might be screwed.
right.
But for Luffy and those guys, they're fine.
Yeah, and
They're
I
fine.
agree with that. I agree with that. So we have these 50. They're this triple digits. Maybe there's more of them. Maybe they have more up top and they just didn't dispatch them. But we also know they have the Cop Kumas on top of that. And then on top of that, on Egghead, Vegapunk also has Seraphims. He has 4 of them. He has
Hmm.
Boa, S Hawk, S Snake, S Bear, and S Shark, right?
And
The
there
way
should be more as well because there are 2 doors that still haven't been opened.
Oh, true. Yeah, so
Yeah,
there
we
could be
saw the
more.
Seraphim. They were already out, and then there were still 2 doors that still were not open after they were released. So, more than likely, it's Flamingo and Crocodile, but
Yeah.
you gotta wait and see.
Right, right. So the way I've been when we first got onto Egghead, this me and Sai we both agreed on this.
Okay.
Vegapunk is Yonko level in all regards. And when you look at his crew, I don't think you
Uh-huh.
can like let's take Big Mom, let's take Kaido out of the picture right now, right?
All right.
The Seraphims, they're Seraphims, the 4 of them that we know of, right? Against the
Yeah.
Sweet Commanders, what happens?
The Seraphim, as we know them, against the Sweet Commanders, like
Yeah,
all of them,
yeah, the
or
4 Sweet
like
Commanders, or the 3 that are there, right? Because apparently Snack got his ass beat by Yurush, right? So like, let's go with the
okay, if we include Snack, okay, is it a group thing or just 1v1?
yeah. Let's go
A
group.
single
Let's go group.
elimination
Yeah, let's go
or
group.
group?
Yeah, because they've been fighting group.
Yeah. So with the Seraphim that we have now, so S Hawk, S Bear, S Snake, and S Shark.
They all have their own devil fruits. They got the Lunarian blood. We got a Mihawk in there, splitting islands. Blackbeard sweating. What do you say? I know this one's a hard one for you. Now you know why I brought this to you.
Okay. I mean, obviously we have a Katakuri, right? And
hmm
it all comes down to how do you think the Seraphim are dealing with Mole? Mole, is it Mogura or Mole? What's the name of his
Oh, the mold
trident?
trident thing. Yeah,
Mole,
Mogura. Yeah.
yeah. How are they dealing with that? Like, can he pierce them with that? Do you think Katakuri can damage a Seraphim?
I think we have to ask about like can he like King it's Lunarian blood. They got the fire on. Zoro couldn't do it unless certain
In Enma
circumstances.
mode?
Yeah, so like it's a little tough, right? And then they left Amazon Lily unscathed, right? They're clashing with King of Hell Zoro right now too.
Yeah. Well, Ka- okay. So the goal is to win. Katakuri can restrain them via other means and not destroy them with like his mochi,
hmm
right? Just overwhelming amounts of mochi, technically. Um, it's so difficult because of his future sight, but I'm just like super leaning on Katakuri. Uh,
Can you future sight a Seraphim is also kind of crazy too. Like who knows, right? Like can he read intent from a robot? It's
feel like
interesting.
I'm going Katakuri or bust, and
That's a because then everyone will be like, yo, Cat, he's that guy, but he's not that guy for because then you're putting all the weight on. We don't know about Smoothie and all that, which is like I would
oh,
say
you know what makes it scary?
what makes it scary.
What if Smoothie starts sucking out the green blood?
That she has to put her hands on them first, right? Like these Seraphims, they were putting the stops on Boa and Blackbeard. You know what I mean? Like this is I don't know. Can Smoothie get to that point against these guys? Hey, I don't know. I can Jinbei could just, toss the whole ground around. Like, essentially Katakuri's awakening is what Jinbei has. You just mold the ground.
Think and Cracker can create pretty much infinite biscuit soldiers. It is close. It is close. Um,
I figured since you're leaning on Katakuri, I figured that this would happen. I think it says a lot that it's hard to say
yeah,
one way or the other, right? But let me hit you. Let me hit you, and this might help you with this question too. Is like, let's go to Onigashima. How does Kaido's calamities take the Seraphims?
I don't think so.
I don't think so,
No,
right? They
no,
Jack,
definitely
Queen,
not.
and King. That's funny that you say
Because
because
they're,
you're leaning on Cat, but
I would like this immediately. No, I just don't think they're not as creative as fighters as the Street Commanders, right?
yeah, yeah,
And if we remove Snack and we put someone like Perospero in there, it's just like they're just more creative than than Kaido's Beast Pirates. So I think it's going to be hard to pierce them regularly because of the Lunarian stuff. They have to like, all right, can Smoothie suck out the green blood when she gets her hands on them, right? Can Katakuri restrain them without actually piercing them via his mochi stickiness, etc.? Or can he possibly pierce it using Mograk? But that's probably one of his weaknesses is his power, even though he did overpower Gear Fourth, etc. It's
right,
just it, he he gets knocked because he didn't have the knockout power to put Luffy down,
yeah,
which is unfair considering it's Luffy,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, I feel like I'm putting too much on Smoothie considering she didn't do anything. Cracker and his Biscuit Soldiers, I don't know how they fare against the Seraphim, but they need a Gear Fourth to beat them, right?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's difficult.
This
It's
is
hard.
difficult.
It's hard. But I here's the thing. I feel like I was overwhelmingly on like Kid Hawk or S Hawk for a long time until Zoro basically told us that he's good, but I think Zoro's stronger than S Hawk.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think like S Hawk can be strong enough where Zoro can look down on him and he's still a massive threat. And especially just being a swordsman, Lunarian swordsman after Mihawk. I think alone is just like, you know, we don't know the hockey stuff with the Seraphims at the moment. Can they use
Right.
hockey is a huge thing, especially with Katakuri. Now that doesn't apply to the Beast Pirate side of thing, which is why it was funny. It's immediately no. I
Yeah.
think going back to the Beast Pirates things, it's easier for the question to play out though. Is like, okay, Seraphim's clear the commanders, right?
Yeah.
But and then let's go to Toby Ropo. So, this is the way
Oh
Sai
no.
put it. This is the way Sai put it. Don't even put the Seraphims. Sasaki lost to General Frankie. Can they take Vega Force One? Can the Toby Ropo take? Do you remember how big Vega Force One was? Like that
Yeah.
thing dwarfed the Sunny, and they
Yeah.
struggled with General Frankie. Like I'm thinking Vega Force One low key takes it against all of the Toby Ropo, and even
There's
if the
only one that where I'm like, is my bae. Ulti.
yeah,
Ulti took like Big Mom's Mazer cannon and
she
like got
took
back
it.
up.
She took it. She didn't retaliate much, right?
You know what I mean? Um, hmm.
Right, like Vega Force One, and then like even if it doesn't clear, right? Like let's say Vega Force One is like on his knees, we still got the Seraphims there, right? Like they cleared the commanders, and then you have the Toby Ropa like help
Yeah,
help, and then they're
okay.
dead.
Okay, so you're saying Vegapunk is Yonko level.
Well,
How do they clear the actual Yonko?
so and that's where it gets interesting, right? Because I think in terms of the Yonko level thing, it's like we don't even take into account that like Vegapunk has like a bunch of Sea Kings too, right? So he has a territory. Then you add
Yeah.
the 50, like the Beast Pirates, right? The Beast Pirates, the fodder ones, right? The 50 Kumas, bro. The 50 Mark III Pacifistas, they just roll up to Onigashima. And I'm like, the reason why I'm saying it's like, yes, Kaido and Big Mom could probably go over there and take Vegapunk out, right? But
Yeah.
my thing is, it's like, why were Big Mom and Kaido like afraid this entire time? Like, you know, Kaido was bolstering up his forces in Wano, and like, given how strong he was, I think everyone to this day still thinks that Kaido is the 1v1 god. Like, there's not anybody really who can take him. Even Akainu would, you know, like, that's a dubious matchup for a lot of people. I know a lot of people are on the Kainu side, but you know, I think the fact that you can't say yay or nay to a villain that was already defeated says a lot about that villain.
Yeah.
Um, and it's like when you think about Vegapunk, he's a force to be reckoned with. Like big mom pirates can't just roll up onto Vegapunk's island without any worries because all the Sea Kings, right? Or Sea
Right.
Beasts, right? Then they show up there. There's the 50 Mark III things and the Cop Kumas. I don't know how many of like the regular besides like Pero Sparrow maybe, but like again, like how far do these like the powers go? And then you add the Seraphims, the Vega Force One. It's like their entire crew struggle. Now, the thing that I'm thinking about is like these things were meant to replace the warlords. I think we're supposed to hold them in regard to that level. So that means that Vegapunk's essential commanders are like warlords. That's how we're supposed to do that, right?
Right.
And then yeah, Kaido and Big Mom, they're anomalies, but I also am feeling like Vegapunk has like a card up his sleeve. Like there's something odd. I feel like even in this chapter that we just read, there's something about Vegapunk himself that we just don't know about. Like we were introduced to him with warp technology. We have not even
Right.
like seen anything of the actual Stella body, like what other nonsense that he has going on. Everything that we've seen has been the byproducts of him, but we haven't seen what he's done. And even him like asking Luffy to protect him, it was like get me off this island. But like when you sit back and you look at the way the story is progressing, it's like did he necessarily need like Luffy like at this point? Like it's kind of crazy, especially when you throw in that Stussy's also technically his creation as well.
Yeah.
Like is Stussy
One of them, and then Stacey's like the OG, so they're more than likely more, right?
right, yeah. And like I know a lot of people like the satellites aren't combative, but like yo, I'm just like at this point, obviously I'm not saying that in a 1v1 Kaido or Big Mom, but what I am saying is like you know, and this goes back to the draft that we did on your
Yeah,
thing
that's
where
what I
it's
was
like
saying. I was like, is this all a part of ParVision's plan to justify his team and like who
I
he
mean,
chose?
it's not, but like I like right now, Vegapunk's like Batman. I feel like if he were to raid Onigashima, he might win. Like he might actually like if he were preparing for Kaido, he could take him down. If you were preparing for Big Mom, I think he could take him down.
Oh
Considering what we've
man.
seen of him now, and that would
Ha-
explain why they like Kaido and Big Mom, if they weren't afraid of the admirals, right? Like, then what are they afraid of? And yes, Imu, Gorosei, maybe they're aware of that level of power from God Valley, but like at the same time, Vegapunk is the more prominent thing. We learned to like in this chapter that he's Mr. Worldwide, essentially, right? The whole world
yeah.
loves him. So, I'm like, is Vegapunk the reason that they were afraid? Like, they know about Vegapunk, and that would kind of make sense because, like, Kaido was experimented on. Like, he should know. Like, it's kind of interesting when you sit back and think about Vegapunk like that.
I'm not mad at it, right? I'm not mad at the thought process. It's here's the tough part is I agree. Vegapunk would overwhelm the commanders, the beast pirates. He would figure out a way to get rid of those guys
Yeah.
without Tama, right? Like he would figure out a way to beat all those guys. Toby Ropo, no matter.
Yeah.
When you get to Kaido, I do agree though. If there's anybody that can think of a way or think of something to defeat Kaido, is Vegapunk.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Like he can, and again, he did experiment on him, so he probably has ways or knows different things which can affect Kaido a lot more than the regular person. Hmm. If Vegapunk raided Onigashima, could he win?
The Straw Hats had like what, a month preparation too. They landed there, they prepared for a month, whatever it was. Give Vegapunk a month, bro. I don't know. I think it's raps. Like,
Well, one of the things that Oda made sure to drill home is that, well, he used Vegapunk to do it, is that the Seraphim, they're the strongest beings in existence.
yeah,
How can you grow them over a month's time to not only eclipse the Beast Pirates, but to put someone like Kaido on his heels? Can you even do that? Can they grow fast enough to supplant Kaido as a group?
we didn't even mention his holograms.
The hologram, yeah. But it's like how can you hurt Kaido?
It's hard to think about, right? It's almost obnoxious to think about because I'm with
We just
everybody.
experienced Kaido, right? And it's
Yeah,
like
we built up like what 10 years of, yo, we're rolling up to Kaido. Kaido's the
even Big
strongest.
Mom was like,
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
And then you think about, and then now we're on Egghead, and like going into it's like, yeah, science, cool, right, whatever. But now I'm like, yo, science is terrifying. Don't I would not want, like, if Vegapunk was a pirate, if he had like any ambition to be the pirate king, I would be terrified. Like, if I saw Vegapunk's flag, I would run like it's Shanks. Like, that would terrify me to the nth
Well,
degree.
I think about with Vegapunk as well. What's stopping him from creating like a mini, what we presume destroyed Lelouch?
Yeah, some people might even, I think there's a portion of the community that think that if that's not Uranus, then that was created by Vegapunk, and now that he created that, they don't need him
Yeah,
anymore, right? If he
yeah.
can create ancient weapon level technology, one, we can't let him live, and two, we don't need him anymore. So like that could also be him too, and that's like
Yeah.
we don't even need to take that into consideration to make this a terrifying like circumstance for all of what we feared for the last like 5 years on Onigashima, right? Like I think like what you said, if Vegapunk raided Onigashima, the fact that like we can consider Kaido losing to like this egghead, literal egghead, is kind of like scary. But here's the reason why. So if it's difficult to imagine at this point someone of like normal power, the powers that we've come to learn over the last 25 years to take down Vegapunk, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have Gear 5 Awakening, but like I kind of would be scared for Luffy if Vegapunk turned all of the powers against the Straw Hats. But like you said, like, yeah, the Awakening is kind of like wraps for the Kumas, and but then we throw in the Seraphims, but then we see Zoro tackling them. It's
Well,
like
let me ask you this real quick. Don't mean to cut you off.
yeah.
Is Awakening affecting Luffy?
Is
Am
it
I tripping?
changing
But
anything?
well, Luffy's tired.
Uh-huh.
Luffy ran away from Cracker for 11 hours. Luffy ran away from Katakuri for 11 hours.
Mm-hmm.
He's been running for a few minutes, and he's like spent. It's not normal.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. So you're saying like this was in the entire time?
Like, is the Awakening affecting him, and he hasn't even noticed that it's doing
Oh.
something to him.
I That's a
Luffy being
hard one.
tired.
Yeah, yeah. That so the way I've been seeing those things is because Gear 4 to me is reliant on hockey, right?
Okay.
So like because he has to expend hockey to maintain those forms, hockey is a finite thing. We don't know about devil fruits, and like you can
Mm-hmm.
be in your full transformation permanently. We haven't had examples, but like I'm sure Dragon wanted to, or Kaido wanted to stay in dragon form the entire time. He could. There's no real limit on him doing that. I don't think
You think
it's a,
so? Well, because remember we had in Nagashima, they mentioned how the flame clouds are weakening and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
right,
it
right.
it kind of is a muscle that does get weakened.
Well, I would
Um.
say like that's an expression of his power, right? He's
Okay.
using a power. Like he can't just sit borrow breathing the entire time. That's gonna make him tired. But it's him being in dragon
Being in
form.
dragon, but that's a tough part as well because there are times where if he gets hit hard enough, he gets knocked out of it. No.
True, true. Yeah, and then we're not even talking about full transformation. We're talking about
Yeah,
awakening, right? So like, is there a limitation on that? At this point, we haven't seen it. Does it make
because
sense? Like I
what's the explanation for Luffy being as spent as he is?
in the previous like Cracker and
Well, yeah, because he like Luffy has proven himself in regards to stamina and endurance, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's
yeah.
not a question. So for him to be here, like even Zora's asking, like, yo, how much did you run for you to be as tired as you are? Maybe we're looking too much into it.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, yeah. That was interesting. Yeah, because some people were saying like maybe the magnets were on and that's why the boots broke. And then like, I'm like, that's weird too because like, well then like, because I always thought Sanji could break them, but he hasn't shown that yet. But like,
Yeah,
yes, Luffy being as tired as he is actually, yeah, you're right. The way I've been explaining Gear 5 on my streams is people have been wanting me to make a short. I've just been too lazy. I'll
yeah,
record it later. Is like the way a rubber band works, right? If you ever stretched out a rubber band, it
yeah,
turns white. Like any kind of rubber, you stretch out to its max, that's white. That's its max
yeah.
thing. Anything past that, it snaps. But when you bring it back, you've now destroyed the bonds in the rubber band once you take it to that white step. What
Yeah.
you do is you have to heat up the rubber band and then it returns back to its former state. But that white part is what I'm saying is gear 5 right now. Luffy's
Hmm.
stretching to the max. So that's the max that the rubber band can do. If he stays too long in that form, he may not be able to stretch
He can't snap
anymore.
back as fast as he's. It's like it takes a while for his body to repair a little bit,
Or
like the
even
bonds.
scarier, even scarier. Luffy has been a rubber boy this entire series. He may lose the rubber quality by the end of the
Oh,
series.
he's losing the elasticity.
Yeah, that's what would happen if you stretch a rubber band too many times. It loses the elasticity. So Luffy started off as a rubber boy, might not end as a rubber boy. Is the essentially the
That's
drawback here.
scary, and that just made me sad. I
Yeah,
don't like that.
I I don't like it either. But like
I don't
that,
like that.
I, that's probably why I didn't make the short because it would make a lot of people sad. I don't want to make people sad.
Yeah, it's like you know what I mean, like that. I feel like in the midst of everything, we all have come so much. We've come to love just the rubber powers, right? Just
Yeah,
consider just how simple they are,
yeah.
and so at this point, for it to be like, Luffy is not rubbery anymore, man. I I like the idea though. I like
And
that idea a lot.
it actually segues into the larger question where it's like, we have to, if this is, I mean, Morge brought it up at the Reverie too. I think he had a video. It's like, how do you even beat this thing, right? Like, will things be interesting moving forward? Like, given his freedom, imagination, that's the crux of this power, so we know. So, like, yeah, Luffy may lose, may suffer a loss in the series, but how did Joy Boy lose? How did the original lose if this was his power? If it's that he ended off as not a rubbery person, he lost that could explain it. But even more so, the question that I want to propose also, so like so you have more things to talk about is if we were just struggling to answer how all of these natural people, Kaido, Onigashima, and past, all these natural, strong, yeah, devil fruit powered, right? But all
Yeah,
these like normal things that we associate with One Piece, to lose to science, Vegapunk, right? But at the same time, Vegapunk tells us his science, his technology is not even close, essentially, to the ancient kingdom. And
yeah.
the ancient kingdom lost to the world government, to 20 kings. And I don't know, you've seen all the 20 kings so far, they're scrubs, right? Like so again, I guess the question it goes back to is like, so if we're questioning how Vegapunk loses and ancient kingdom was higher, what powers were there to topple the ancient kingdom, right? And I like
That's have
that's
been
confusing.
betrayal. That have
Yeah,
been betrayal. Like, because even with Vegapunk now, we're like, how does it fall, right? Like the Straw Hats and Vegapunk, that alliance seemed unstoppable.
right.
And right now, what's causing the dissension is that we think there's an inside man working against them. And so, for a lot of great empires, typically it's betrayal that leads to the fall. And so, I would not be surprised if back in the day, the ancient kingdom were, of course, the kingdom that was in charge of everything, right? Just over everything, had the most power. But if they're anything like Vegapunk, being a bit selfish, being a bit, if you're already on top and you think that you're a god, right? You're on top of the red line, all this different stuff, or you know, you may try to do things that may not only put other people but the world in jeopardy.
Right.
And so what's clear in every organization, right? Even then we're seeing it now with Vegapunk, everybody's not always going to agree,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And we saw how Lilith was, how Shaka was, how like it's a push and pull where everybody's like, well, what about this? They're like, what about this? There are going to be people within the organization. It's like, I don't know how I feel about that. We see within the Marines, see within the Celestial Dragons, right? Most Guard and those guys, where it's like everybody's not on the same accord, but can you do something to change it? We saw how basically how an inside man was important to toppling the empire in Wano, right? We had Kyoshiro was an inside man for that long, and he played a great role in
True.
regards to them falling, right? And even Yamato to a different extent. So it's like for the ancient kingdom, it had to have been someone within it that led to it falling. It had to have been someone there that was working with the ancient the kings, um, because it just they're so powerful. But also, the more I think about it, the more I don't necessarily think the world government was bad back then. Right? I don't think it was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they were like, yeah, we just want all this power. I think they had valid reasons for what they did.
Right.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
and perception versus reality. Oda has painted the ancient kingdom as like completely innocent. As
Mm-hmm.
like they were doing nothing. They were just inventing things. They were just strong. They were just thriving, right?
Right.
Just a thriving nation. He has painted them right currently with no flaws.
That they're the
And
victims.
that they're the victims.
Yeah.
You're telling me the strongest empire to exist they're the victims? Interesting.
Right. Yeah.
Very interesting. So I do think if we had to point to one thing, that one reason why they fell with all that power, somebody betrayed them. Inside man.
Perfect. And
Yeah.
like I think that's, there's more than one ways to get to that point, right? Like
Yeah.
my recent video, if the viewers have seen it yet, it's like I talk about how with just to fast forward it for you, viewers can get the context later. Is that now that we got the name Saturn, right? The
Mm-hmm.
Gorosei Saturn. Well, there's five of them there, and then you look at the planets, and then you're
Yeah.
like, wait, the planets and the ancient weapons, they follow a similar naming scheme. The only difference
Mm-hmm.
is the ancient weapons follow a Greek system, and then the Gorosei currently are following the Roman naming system. So what I
Right.
was basically saying was like, what if they were all in the same crew, and the ancient weapons were just the commanders of Joy Boy? And so then the
Mm.
defecting would be the world government side, right? And the world government wasn't actually bad, which is, there's so many different things, but you still get the story of betrayal. Another way
Yeah.
to look at it is like what you said. Look at Arabasta. Look at Wano. The two arcs that kind of like where the leader is connected on to the void century in some regard, like in
Yeah.
one way or the other. And look at how they were toppled. They were toppled through the clone fruit. Through, we talked about this on your channel.
Mm-hmm.
They were talked
Yeah.
impersonated,
Yeah.
and now we have clones. We have bona fide clones. Where like Stussy as a clone betrayed CP0 after 20 years, right? Like there's another one. So
Yeah.
then and then the point of the entire conversation is like Vegapunk is a force that people should recognize on the tier of Yonko level. Yes, maybe not Kaido and Big Mom, they're anomalies, sure. We don't know what Vegapunk has in store, but you look at the rest of them, crazy. But then you said it too. Straw Hats and Vegapunk together, that's a force to be reckoned with. Now, what you're looking at is, isn't Egghead a parallel to the Void Century? We had the Ancient Kingdom, apparently run by Joy Boy, which would be Luffy, and then a scientific powerhouse that was higher than
Yeah.
Vegapunk. So you're telling me you're getting like the dream team that we're saying is
And they're
undefeated right
struggling
now.
like they are now, where they're like, what is going on? You know what I mean? It's scary to think about. But when you think about One Piece in general, and then like think about Luffy's power and the ability to make friends, it seems like betrayal and having allies and turning people. That's, I mean, even Marineford, right? Like
Yeah.
Kainu and scored. Like
Yeah.
it's just like you need that one thing, that one like pebble, that one domino, and if you can turn that one person, it completely shifts it for you. Like in every single arc, Luffy be dead right now if it wasn't for Nico Robin, you know. And
Yeah.
so it just, I think it's just it would be consistent with how things go. And like, say if Joy Boy had the same ability like Luffy did, or back then where the ability to turn and make friends, and there's somebody just like, you know what, you're right. Like what they're trying to do here does put everyone else in jeopardy, does put the future in jeopardy, right? The future does not end here, and so who knows if that like what side was Toki on, right? When they sent her forward in time, like what was she running from? You know what I mean? Like, what was her duty back then? It all makes you think about just it makes you think about what you know, and also not to not to fall too deep in your biases and be like, well, the ancient kingdom did nothing wrong, they're fine, because one of the kingdoms that went up against them was Arabasta, right? And for the most part, it's a lineage thing, right?
Hmm.
Cobra's a good guy, and you would assume his dad and so forth and so on. They didn't want to be celestial dragons. So off of that, it's just like they operate a bit differently, but they worked with them to topple the world government or the ancient kingdom. But
Yeah. Where's
so
yeah.
it has to be something there, bro. So I, with everything, I reserve judgment. Like we're thinking about talking about Elbaf with with Loki and those guys. It's like I don't know. Like I don't know what to expect. Like people are expecting that they should have the strongest army. Like they should be crazy, but what is the most unlikely scenario? Like, what is the most thing that Oda can do for us to be like, what is going on? That's more than likely what's going to happen, because
So
that's what Oda enjoys. Like, just completely flipping it on its head for you to think, okay, this is just silly, and it was
right.
like, yeah, it's silly. Of
Yeah.
course it is. That's the story, right? So, um, never. I would say never believe anything the way it's painted.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because it never is that way, like ever.
For sure. And like I think it's given how powerful our straw hats are getting, and then you add Vegapunk into it. It's like
It feels overwhelming
yeah, and then how do you beat them? It's inside something, right?
inside
So
somebody working against them.
so
Yeah,
do you think I want to go back to the Elbaf thing later, but like right now on Egghead, we're getting, the possibility that there is a traitor. It's not confirmed yet. I think it's stronger that it is a traitor within the Vegapunks. That's what makes the most sense to
yeah.
me. But with this overarching concept that the ancient kingdom fell, world government is there. Ancient kingdom's super advanced. They're the empire on top. They're in the position of the world government. The world government's the underdogs, right? The ancient kingdom is there. They have all this power. They have Joy Boy, the ancient weapons. They have their version of Vegapunk, who's apparently a lot smarter.
Yeah.
There's some betrayal, right? And I think Arabasta is in that mix. If you guys want to know my ideas on that, go check out the last video. But my question to you, Brago, is how does that look in our timeline? How does that look for Luffy in terms of betrayal? Like, you know what I mean? Like when you start thinking about how things like I always go back to it. People have this notion that a lot of creators fall back on parallels way too much a lot of times,
Right.
especially with One Piece. But you go back to chapter 99. It says first page of it, it says like legends that endured legends like the legends of the future were events that took place in the past, something along those lines. That's
Hmm.
the not a direct quote, but that's essentially what it says. It's a lot better of a quote. And so the way I look at it is like I know that a lot of people are thinking, oh yeah, like there's gonna be a traitor on the straw hats, but like is that how it goes down? Is it on the straw hats or is it someone else? Like how does this thematic parallel to that with this, how you're saying like yeah, they're the Kyoshiro, there's Kanjuro, there's Bon Clay as a clone, there's Stussy here, there's so many insider breakdowns. What does that look like in the last saga for you?
Um, the last saga is I think it comes down to where you think it's gonna go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the direction in regards to One Piece first, Final War first, right?
Right.
Um, I go back and forth with it because of just how much pushback Arthur had with it. So I'm just like, okay, am I looking at it the wrong way? Am I looking at it from a skewed perspective where it's like they definitely find One Piece first, and they definitely go after the Final War. So I'm never really sure about that. What's your perspective on it? Like, where do you think
That
it
last
goes with
part.
it? Yeah,
I naturally fall with they get to Laugh Tale, they learn of something. That history is essentially what turns the world upside down, right? That's what we understand
yeah,
of it, and then that's how the war starts. But the thing about the One Piece is it doesn't need to be something that they discover there or not. Even when you look at what Roger said, it's like like him calling it the One Piece or whatever, right? That was like an after thing, right? Did he call it like the One Piece while he was there? No, he's just like we're gonna call this island Laugh Tale.
yeah,
The One Piece was
yeah,
the treasure that circulated the globe, right?
yeah,
And then he said,
yeah.
"I left it all in One
There,
Piece,"
One Piece.
right?
Yeah,
So like that terminology of One Piece, it and when you put in what Rayleigh says, it's like it's almost something that you figure out at the end of the story. Yes, right? But the beginnings of it, the context of it might start when we get to
might
Laugh
start
Tale.
there.
When
Right,
the
you're right.
war ends, then we get the
Then you can literally put the pieces together.
of what at least what
Uh,
Luffy's One Piece is. It might be
yeah,
that the One Piece is different for everybody, the beholder, right? And then we're following Luffy and Luffy's version of it, his perspective of it, and how he uses it or what he does with it is ultimately what the One Piece will be, right? And it might be that until he clashes with the Emu, until clashes with Blackbeard, until the Shanks ultimate stuff, those are the pieces that ends up with Luffy getting the right answer. And we look at how like one thing that people forget is like the Luffy on Onigashima is very different from the Luffy on Arlong Park, right? Arlong Park, he slept through Nami's backstory. He said, "That's a bad dude. I'm gonna beat his ass down." He goes to Fishman Island. Jinbei's telling the story, and like Luffy's not necessarily caring about the context of it. But then we see on Onigashima, after all this time from Dressrosa, right? He's starting to absorb, like, wait, the context matter. Wait, I am fighting for the samurai. Wait, I am doing it for these people. I want this country to eat. It doesn't matter what you say because I know them. I know their history, right?
yeah.
So we even see that progression where it's like once Luffy gets to Laughdale, he'll care about the history.
As the
And
stakes grow, it seems like his interest kind of grows. It's like, all right, this is a bit more important. Even though he doesn't want to be a hero, it's like, you know, how he's inherently involved because there are people involved that matters to him,
right,
right? And
right.
so that is interesting that Oda has been giving him and have him care more about context a lot more than ever, which does make him more of a hero, right? Because if you know the context and you're doing it because of the context, it's more of a noble effort as opposed to like, I don't care what it is. This is just me picking a side,
Yeah,
right? Does that make me a good guy? Right?
yeah,
I just picked a side because
right.
I like this person as opposed to the context of the situation. Well, Kaido came in, da 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 da. Da. It's like now you're trying to liberate the country, So
Yeah, now you're a
that's
warrior of
interesting.
liberation. And then
Yeah,
like on top of that, it's like maybe that's not what Roger did, right? Like we know that Noland freed the Tentatas, right? Was Roger going around liberating countries? So if that's not the path that he experienced, the One Piece might mean something completely different. If the Kid Pirates go there, if Law goes there, they weren't liberated. Well, yeah, they did,
well,
but where they
here's the
didn't
thing is
doing it for
the
those
crazy part is
reasons.
that Blackbeard is also a warrior of liberation, but
And
it's like
his path is so different, and he'll come with a different answer, right?
like
That's what.
he freed the impel down prisoners. That's
Yeah,
liberation.
yeah, and
You know what I mean?
Buggy too, right? Like,
And so it's just like, but it's like, no, but he's releasing bad people. But yeah, when you talk about freedom, I'm sure for the world government when they release the slaves, it's like, well, you're releasing bad people. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
So I'm really intrigued to see where Oda goes with just how what liberation means to like these two individuals. Because I think even like Blackbeard had an attack named Liberation, right?
yeah, yep. He does.
That's after he does Black Hole, he does Liberation. So it's
Yep.
like, you know, he's setting it up for like a very, very interesting clash in regards to values and that dynamic,
Yeah.
which is it gets more interesting the more you think about it.
Yeah, that actually, I never even thought about it like this, but Impel Down is a portrayal of what you're saying, liberation, you have three people, Luffy, Buggy, and Blackbeard, who all would be considered liberators. And
Yeah.
I guess the question is like, what was their context for that liberation? Did Luffy liberate them for the sake of liberating them? No. Did Buggy liberate them for the sake? No, he just benefited. Did Blackbeard do it?
Everybody benefited their own ways.
Yeah, and so it's like who, liberation is great, but who are you liberating? Do you have discrimination in your liberation, right?
The context is going to matter. The how you view it is going to depend on what side you're on.
Yeah,
Like for Blackbeard, I'm getting my crew, right?
yeah,
For Luffy, I'm getting these guys out so I can go save Ace.
yeah, yeah.
For Buggy, I'm getting these guys out so I can survive, right?
Right,
It's all selfish. None of it is truly noble. But for us, we're rooting for Luffy because he's the main character. But
right.
it's all wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? He snuck into a government facility to free his brother. That broke the law. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? But it's like he's the warrior of liberation for the world. But like he released full-fledged criminals
Also,
from Impel Down.
yeah.
And because of what he did, there are criminals out there that the world government they can't tell you about because hey, that's a stain on, our form of like liberation, I guess. So it gets really murky, but I think that's the beauty of it, where
Right.
you just really can't pick a side because no one's right and no one's wrong. Because I understand what Blackbeard was doing. Like, hey man, I need these guys. I understand for Buggy, he's like, I need these guys. And for
Right.
Luffy's like, well, I need my brother. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
He didn't care,
So
which might
yeah,
be almost more important, right? Like maybe the whole thing is that prison is just bad. Maybe prison is
yeah.
just the problem, right? Like
Like no prison for no one.
yeah, yeah. Like maybe that whole concept is wrong. I mean, we do see that Udon, right? Like, obviously the person who put them there wasn't correct, right? Like some of them were there for petty reasons, like just
Right.
robbery, but they were also starved to death and they couldn't eat, and then they were
Yeah.
put there for labor purposes,
Labor.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like you get this context that whoever's enforcing the law is more of the issue than the prison, right?
But
Um,
this reform, how does it happen? Like, if you're not
yeah,
suggesting prison, what do you suggest?
and that yeah, it's crazy how this conversation keeps going full circle. Like I've been on this train with my recent video, but with shorts. Well, for those of you guys who don't know, you guys know Brago as the YouTuber, but you guys may not know Brago as the TikToker. He's
Got
BDA
a little
Talk.
TikTok thing going, VDA talk,
Yeah, yeah. He's exclusive stuff there. You want to see your own a new version of Brago, connecting with the younger the younger population. Go check him out there. But I've been having these shorts about so what I've been doing is like my YouTube videos are like the long form, and then I've been hyping them up with my shorts, right? Or
Right.
TikToks. And one thing I've been talking about is I think that it might be, do you remember Sora, Warrior of the Sea?
Yeah.
I've been on this train that Sora might have been the betrayer of the ancient kingdom and sided with the world government. And
Mm.
that might come full circle with this, with like who's being liberated, right? So the Warrior of the Sea, the reason why I'm bringing that back up is because, well, to give it context, Warrior of the Sea, Warrior of Liberation, you
Yeah.
almost like, how are they not contemporaries, right? If you're wondering like, wait, sort of, that was a comic thing, right? Go watch the shorts if you're confused about why it makes sense that that was about the ancient kingdom, because
Yeah.
what was told about that was that those are the true exploits of the Marines, but the actual events of it don't exactly line up with our story. One main one, we don't have to dig into it, is that Law, Kid, and the guy Vito on Beige's crew, they talked about, they knew Stealth Black's abilities, but
Hmm.
Stealth Black didn't technically exist in our timeline because Sanji's Stealth Black. So how did they know about that if no one wore the suit yet, right? And the suit could have existed, but there's other things that also don't line up exactly with what's being said. You would almost be saying that the world government Morgans predicted Germa double sixes like upper echelon, which doesn't make too much sense.
Or specific stories told in certain regions. Like, I'm not sure how you feel about it, where the story of the 16, the number 16, and how influential it is in regards to the inner circle of celestial dragons. That's why Doflamingo kind of crafts his different
Mm-hmm.
abilities around the number 16, and then with Lucia, this was 16 rays, etc. Right,
Right.
and then in Wano, the stories that were told about Orochi and Odin, It's like it could be something that's important but was condensed to like that specific region because all those guys are from the North Blue, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And the way I've been seeing it is like, you know how Vegapunk said like as long as people wish for Nika, Nika will exist, right?
hmm
And for that to happen, why would that would be the reason why you erase the history of Nika, erase the history. It's not in the encyclopedia, it's not in anything. That's why you can't read the
yeah,
poneglyphs, right? But if that's the way it works, how would you revive your own warrior? Well, I would run a comic strip naming him the hero of the Marines and run that propaganda throughout the world, which is why he's beloved by all the kids and why even Law and Drake read that story,
yeah,
why Vito read that story. So the way I've been seeing is that Sora ran counter to Nika in a lot of ways, but at the same time, the thing is, why would the sea and liberation be on opposing parts? And that's where it gets a little bit more interesting because it's like, well, Joy Boy had to write an apology letter to the fisherman, right? That whole context is super interesting. If he's a warrior of the sea, maybe there was some kind of liberation with the
he veered off
fisherman.
his path. He
Yeah,
veered off
that
the path, and he had to, something was more pressing and important at that time where he's like, I have to take care of this. I apologize. I know what the plan was, but right now this is paramount.
Yeah. And that could have been, hey, like you're not the warrior of liberation. I can't side with you. You just did this fisherman dirty or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And that would explain the whole, struggle that Fishman Island went through afterwards. The 800 years post. So that now that I think about it, that could honestly be a connection. There has to be something that Joy Boy was misunderstood in, right? And he wrote an apology letter, and we don't know why, right? Like all the other poneglyphs tell you about ancient weapons, and we know that like the Kozuki whatever wrote them,
yeah,
but then there's an apology letter, right? That might be the crux of where this betrayal, where the misunderstanding comes from. In the same light of Arabasta, right, where everyone's like, Cobra used the dance powder. How dare he use that, right? And it's like, that's in a lot of ways that could be a weapon on its own that
yeah,
destroyed nations essentially. So if Joy Boy misused the powers of Poseidon to not bring the citizens up, hey, maybe we got our answer for why the world government might have been, on the good side at start, and then because the
yeah.
history was lost, history repeated itself.
But also, like you said, but chapter 99, where whatever Joy Boy did was important to the future, and he understood that, right?
Yeah,
We think of with Tony Stark, and I don't want to spoil Infinity War or
I
Endgame.
mean, it's been years.
You know what I'm saying? But like how is it's one way in which we can win. And sometimes you have to like make that sacrifice. And for Joy Boy, even though we this was our plan, we're gonna do this, do this, do this. Then he saw an opening for something that he had to do.
Oh,
Right?
that's
It was like,
rougher.
yeah, this is the only way in which the future does exist. And so Joy Boy, you know, at that point, imagine I'm Joy Boy,
Yeah.
right? I'm the chosen one, or so I
Hmm.
thought. But now it's something more difficult that I have to do where it doesn't really paint it, or I'm gonna die, right? Or I'm gonna fail this mission that I thought I had, right? But I know it's important. I have to do this, and this supersedes all the things that are already in place with Poseidon and Fishman Island. But I know it's important. I'm apologize because it's gonna work out, right? But
I like
how do
that.
we get there? You know what I mean?
Yo, I like it. That's a crazy thing too, because from what we know on Laugh Tale, it did paint the timeline out. Odin
Yeah.
was like 20 years from now. That's where you need
Mm-hmm.
to go, Toki. He
Odin said
knew
20 years.
Joy Boy was gonna come back, so that means that Joy Boy knew that Joy Boy was gonna come back. So it's like,
Right.
what did he know and what did he decide? Was it after he was defeated that he did that? Like, what
Or
was
it
the
had to be
context?
something had to have happened beforehand because he had a whole apology letter, right?
Yeah,
So it's
true.
almost like, remember when Odin had his journal and he gave Toki the like the in like gave what he gave a journal in jail. It was like, here, take this, right? And so in the midst of like life or death, it's people like that I think that continue just the hope of the world, right? People like Cobra.
Mm-hmm.
right? Understanding what they have to do, Fujitora, right? Understanding I got to fall on my sword, right? For the greater good. People like Dragon, which for a lot of people feel like there's a sacrifice coming,
Right.
right? Because you understand that it's greater than just me.
Right.
And so, what can I do? Because it, just imagine knowing that you're gonna die, right? You don't have to, right? You can continue living, but if you care about the future of the world or future of your country, like, all right, it is what it is. I gotta go. Like when Odin is like,
Yeah.
if I don't defeat Kaido, like in 20 years from now, they're gonna be people that's strong enough to defeat Kaido.
Or even crazier, you bring up a crazy point where it's like Odin knew Toki's powers.
Yeah,
Why didn't he just
yeah.
go to the future? But he probably accepted that, like, there's no will right
I
now to
gotta
open
stay
up.
here.
Yeah, there's no will to open up Wano right now. I am that will. I need to set that will forward. And maybe it's something of like, when you talk
Also,
about
think about Odin's death, right? Say Odin didn't die there, and Yamato doesn't see that.
exactly.
Imagine if you have two Kaidos,
Yo.
right? 20 years. Imagine if that's like a fucking filler episode where Odin doesn't die. Odin goes into the future, like, no, I'm gonna go into the future and fight Kaido.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now you have Kaido and Yamato fully bought in to
Yeah.
Kaido's mission.
Like Ace
Oh
is already
shit.
dead because Yamato
It,
could beat his ass
Yamato
down.
beat his ass.
Luffy runs to Onigashima to avenge Ace. He's already dead.
He's
Like,
gone. So it we're in a timeline that's completely fucked all because you didn't fall on your sword. Then it's like, damn. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
it's like it takes a lot to look in the face of death and understand like it's going to be better for the future.
Yeah.
If my sacrifice it's not just about me, but look at the inspiration for Yamato, for the scabbards, right?
Yeah.
But
All of
also
Wano.
and also in a way somewhat disarming Kaido, where for Kaido it's like my biggest adversary is gone. Yeah, I'm gonna get stronger because he told me to get stronger. But even remember for Orochi, he was saying, "Yo, the scabbards are not dead,
Yeah. Yeah. He got gaslit.
right?" And he's like losing his mind for 20 years. Everybody's like, "You're crazy." So it disarmed the country. They're like, what are you talking
yeah.
about?" Orochi, what's his name? Kyoshi was right under his nose
Yeah.
because of Odin's death. Like Odin's gone. What you mean? Like, what are you worried about? So I think when you look at the big picture and just when you look at Odin's sacrifice, it's like he just died, right? He just died, and he says he's going to the future, whatever. But like when we just like think through it, like we just did,
yeah.
he had to die.
Yeah. Yeah. And that the thematic isn't just a one-off thing. Like now I'm thinking about it, it's like Kuma. Kuma had a decision to
Kuma,
make. We don't
Kuma had,
know, bro. We're
it's
seeing the stuff.
obviously important.
Yeah, to like, and tying it back, it's just like now knowing that he was a celestial dragon slave, and then
As a
he
child,
accepted the future where he knew he would be that again for whatever future. We don't know what he did that, but like
I'm
that
getting back to
again.
what the thing he was like. Imagine as a kid, right? Because it seems like what do you feel like Kuma was being forced back into? I was saying either war or slavery when he was
I
a
think it
kid,
was slavery.
right?
I think he's like Kaido level strong,
She was strong, so they could use his body and
and but he was
for
able to
their own
escape.
entertainment, right?
Yeah,
So for him, that's trauma.
yeah.
He chose to go back to that
For
willingly.
right.
But
Yeah,
also in the face of that, he knew he had decisions to make, like protecting the Straw Hat ship. Why? Why that ship specifically?
yeah,
Why? How did you know where all the Straw Hats were supposed to go? So it's like Puma has to be privy to some things about the future as well. Like it's almost as if when the minx and it's like we cannot afford like Pedro's death
yeah.
can't they can't die, like they absolutely can't die. And for Kuma, what do like these important people in history, what do they know, what are they seeing? But we got to also think about it on the other hand where they know something but also Imu knows something.
Yeah.
They have an idea of like, okay, there are forces at work here against us. How do we counter that? You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, um, I think
But
the more we look at it, the more we talk about it, the more we think of just like how unbelievable of a story One Piece is.
yeah, no, oh God.
Right? Like
Because
it's
like
just mind blowing, bro.
even now, like, I think this will probably be where we close out the conversation, but it's like when the Gorosei say like we need to do a great cleansing to maintain an equilibrium. That's not what a conqueror necessarily would say, right? But then you go back to like what Joy Boy might have done. He set forth a series of events at his sacrifice, apparently, given how strong he was, given whatever, he was betrayed, he apologized, he probably died, and he set
Yeah,
forth like this timeline that Odin was able to receive and then follow. Who's to say that the Gorosei and Emu don't know what that timeline is?
yeah,
And that makes it even more interesting because if the Gorosei were on Joy Boy's crew or they were like friends with Joy Boy at one point, then that equilibrium is even more interesting because they're
they
Luffy, it
understand it.
seems like he's trying to break that. Kuma trying to break that. All these people who've suffered the traumas, this and sacrificed their life for it, Odin, everybody, they're trying to
Yeah,
break this thing, whereas the Gorosei are trying to maintain it. But at the same time,
because it benefits them at this point. It benefits like their agenda. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah, and then it's like what world did Joy Boys leave for that equilibrium to start, and what life did he sacrifice in order for 800 years maybe in the future for something to
But
happen.
think about it though. The Gorosei they've basically prevented war for eons, right?
They prevented it, but they also have been fueling it too.
So so think about the Yonko system.
Right.
The system that they they keep the system and they somewhat embrace it because it's not only a deterrent of war between these four great pirates, but also for other pirates,
Right.
right? It maintains a certain level of peace for a long time.
Yeah.
Like the Yonko, they because of the system that's created, they don't interact, they don't fight, and pirates are scared of them,
Yeah.
right? And so for the Gorosei, of course, there's hell on earth happening beneath Mary Joa, right? That they
Yeah.
kind of overlook.
Uh-huh.
Then you have the discrimination against Fishman Island. But what, in all actuality, what type of world do you want to create? Or what type of world do you think is possible to be created? Because I think this is as close to best case scenario as possible. Of course, but you remove the celestial dragons, right? That oppression. But for the most part, what the world government, what they've created is order, is stability, it's security, right? It's I, I think in terms of what could possibly happen in this world when you have people like Kaido, just like the strongest decide
Right.
who live,
Right.
right? The strongest are the people who basically make the decisions. They're like, well, okay, if you're the strongest, come on,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
They're the deterrents, and then they somewhat empower people like Kaido because they know Wano is important to the ancient kingdom, the ancient history. Okay, Kaido, we actually want you to stay in charge of
Yeah.
Wano, right?
You're right.
Because then
Right.
nobody's gonna go to Wano,
Yeah.
and so they're they're not good, right? But I don't think it's all bad considering what could possibly happen to the world. Like, imagine if someone like Kaido was in control.
Or Big
Look what
Mom.
happened to Wano,
Yeah. Yeah. Like
right?
any of their all their empires, though it made sense that they created because they themselves suffered some sort of atrocity, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they aren't creating perfect worlds themselves, right?
No.
And I think that's at the end of the day what the system is. There's no perfect system, but what you mentioned is like I think the world government is what you said closest to the best. I think what might be accurate is closest to our world
Yes.
is in and so like this why celestial dragons in a lot of ways are the people who inherited off of
The
a
power. Yeah.
post world war, right? So like all, you know, people go back to Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, whatever, right? Like all that
Hmm.
stuff, and it's like they inherited a world, and that's not fair. And the upward mobility of a lot of countries and a lot of people, individuals also, is restricting. We see that in the One Piece world, and like I think at any point, whatever world Luffy ends up creating, or whatever world the Ancient Kingdom aspired to create, it's gonna feel idealistic to us. It's gonna feel like a fairy tale to us, and I think that is, we're not gonna be able to dodge that boat, right? Because, but
Right.
that's what Oda's trying to break us out of. That like this is the oppression, and this is, you know, like you can, like what you're saying, right? Like the Ancient Kingdom probably wasn't all that great, right? Like
Yeah.
you know, the world prior probably wasn't all that great, and so this world was actually better, and the
Yeah.
world government wasn't wrong in doing what they did. But what they might have been wrong at is not, rather than keeping the equilibrium, is finding a new way to improve and to innovate. And I think that's the same problem that our world struggles with, is like there's a status quo, and it's hard to break that status quo because the status quo
And
feels
yeah.
safe, it feels
And we try to
peaceful.
maintain it, right? Because you can't fathom, but also it's not about you can't break it. You're not allowed to,
Exactly.
because the
Yeah.
people that's in power, they're in power for a reason and they control everything. And so you have to appease them. And that's why, even in certain circumstances, there are people that feel like maybe there's a cure for cancer out there,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Maybe there's a cure for something out there, but population control, right? Like it benefits, it's so much more money in medicine, right? Like
Hmm.
people are gonna pay for this. Like imagine if there was a cure for cancer, right?
Right.
There's a lot of money in cancer treatment, and so for the world, it's like, all right, it's kind of two birds, one stone, right? It's a lot of money in it. People die.
Yeah.
Like I think recently they were talking about like how the world now has 8 billion people. It's kind of like it's a lot of people. You know, like imagine if like people were living longer. Like let's funnel the preservatives and
Careful, Brago. People might think something about you.
uh,
They already know you're on the marine agenda, bro.
bro, these are things that it's like
No, no,
it's in our face,
and like that, you know, going back to the Ancient Kingdom, my opinion is there's no, anything in excess is a bad thing, right?
Yeah,
So if we went back to the Ancient Kingdom time, maybe it's a Thanos situation, right? Not to spoil that again, but it's like overpopulation, not being able to feed people. Did the Ancient Kingdom, were they able to solve that? Sure, but I'm sure there's a lot of other problems that come from that.
yeah,
Maybe the person who betrayed them was using that as the engine, right? Like your direction is too much, right? We have to
yeah,
reel back on what's happening. And how do we reel back? Well, let's delete science. And that seems like
yeah.
what happened to the One Piece world up until
Let's have the
Vegapunk.
world regroup,
Yeah.
and let's see where it goes from there.
Yeah.
Right? We we think we're God. Like we think we're God. We want to create the sun.
Right.
We want to
Right.
create this energy.
Who do you think you are, right? Like,
What are we doing?
yeah.
But think about the person who had to make that decision, assuming that person exists. That's a big decision to make.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where this kingdom is thriving, they're the powerhouse. I'm sure you're probably in a comfortable position yourself.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, but it's not right. It's like we're going about things completely the wrong way, right?
Right.
But then you make that decision, and let's say there's a Madam Shirley that exists, and it's like, well, the decision that you make is gonna basically recreate the same thing, but in a different form until Warrior of Liberation comes around.
Right.
Like fuck, like so it's like yeah, a lot more people are probably gonna die.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to make that decision.
Yeah, and like and we know that prior to the Void Century, it was bad. Like the Tentatas, their history, they know that they were oppressed. They
Yep.
know that and we don't know like necessarily the rulers what side or what lineage of that, like how widespread that was with the D clan involved in that. But like, those 20 kings, they united for a reason, right?
It
The
wasn't all good, bruh.
Yeah, the
It
20
wasn't all good back then.
how hard is it for the 20 kings to unite right now, given how bad it is right now, right? So it's like, if they united, maybe it was uniting for the flip side of things, and that might be what Joy Boy saw, was like, the world that I want to create can't be created right now because the good that I'm making isn't
You have to
understood.
plant it. You have to plant that seed, and
Yeah,
over
and they need to
time
see
it
the flip
grows.
side
You got
in
to go
order
through it.
to accept the other side and come to the middle. And
Think
this,
about it now. It's like we talk about the kings uniting and the revolution that's happening because of Sabo
right.
and all these different countries. Like, hold on, let's. You know what I'm saying? Like, we not rocking with that. It could have been the same thing, but a bit more organized, a bit more, you know, a bit more in the shadows. But it's like history repeating itself. Like
Yeah.
it's like a rhyme to it, where it's like this was inevitable. That's why Rogers' words and Rayleigh saying, "No, you got to make a decision based on what you find out,"
What you just
because
said is kind of correct.
they're, they're not. Like maybe I think they're wrong.
Yeah.
You might not think they're wrong, but it's enough for me to say you got to make your own decision, because
Hmm.
there's certain things where we see it's like, no, that's bad, like that's just wrong.
Yeah.
But it's vague enough to the point that really is like, mm, let's see what you say,
Right. Right.
because it's like, yeah, it's a good world, but people are still being oppressed. I think the world can be better, but it's going to take this kingdom falling, and then other people are going to have to take over. But power corrupts people,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's why One Piece, it never ends, because even after you get rid of Celestial Dragons, you get Kobe in there, you get Fujitora in there, you get Smoker in there. They're not going to live forever, right?
Right.
You can hope that through over time their will lives on, and people follow in their footsteps, like the people that were inspired by Garp, like Aokiji. Look at the impact that he's making in the world, right? But then Akainu still exists, right? You have people that are gonna be a part of the Marines that are left over, that are probably like thinking about Wano and what he already said at the end, or the Kurozumi were born to burn,
Right. Right.
right? And then people are like, oh, it's not that deep, unless you're Kurozumi.
Yeah,
Right? And
the
then
the line, my viewers are gonna want me to push back on that, in that Hiyori didn't say that, but at the end of the day, it was still said to the masses. Like, if you were a Kurozumi and hiding in Wano, bro, you were hiding even more. You thought the day was like, I'm free. Never
right.
mind. Never
And
mind.
even then, people, the context that they were saying was like, okay, they're talking about like she was referring to Orochi specifically.
Hmm.
Um, but at the end of the day, we know the history of Wano. The history of that country is that they hunt and find. They find you based on your lineage,
Yeah.
and they kill you. Right? They do not like things or people that are different. And so, even if she said Orochi Kunomizumi was born to burn, right? I'm like, I'm not a Orochi Kurozumi, but I'm a Kurozumi.
I'm
Uh,
scared. You
I'm
know.
scared,
Yeah. Yeah. Because
because
it doesn't separate out from like association, right? Like, my favorite line from Game of Thrones right now, I might use it in future videos, that history doesn't remember blood, it remembers names. And
yeah,
that's, we still D-Clan, right? It remembers the single letter, right?
yeah.
Kurozumi is a long name to remember, right? They were hunting down the Kozuki, right, in the current time. So it's like, that is what is being taught, regardless of what it is. Like, if you're,
It creates a seed. That's what my whole point of it was, like, it creates a seed,
yeah.
right? Orochi had hella kids out here, right? He was for sure.
Yo,
There, there, there's one
true.
that might be like,
Odin
mm,
had a lot of kids too, though. If we're gonna
yeah,
go that
but
route, but I'm just continue, continue.
for this, but the thing is, like, you're gonna know who Odin's kids are.
Yeah, yeah,
You're not gonna know. You might not know who Orochi's kids are,
yeah. I mean,
and before
Zoro
you
might
know
be
it,
his kid. I'm just saying.
but
Yo, hold on. This is better than the clone theory. Come on, bro. Like,
I'm not touching that one. That was
no, but
that was
continue the seed, bro.
outside my
Talking about
bandwidth.
Rochi planting his seeds, literally and mentally.
That's crazy. That's crazy. But nah. This chapter does spur a lot of a lot of thought, just because it's
Yeah,
one of those. You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah,
definitely one of
yeah,
those.
yeah. And like, I think it more. I'll say this every single time it happens, but Egghead is prepared. Like, when we thought like, oh, after Wano, we need Last Eye to hit. I did not think it was gonna hit like this, and
Yeah,
the amount of conversations and how it shifted, like the type of conversations, the things we're talking about, the subject matter, how
yeah,
much we're learning about the Void Century without even learning about it. Like this conversation that we had, I feel like we're not too far off, but like this is what Oda always does. It's like he plants a seed. He literally plants a seed. Like, hey, there's a
yeah,
traitor. Who's the
yeah.
traitor, right?
And the thing is, it's been planted for a while.
Right. Yeah.
For me, after they talked about the ships disappearing, it's like I don't know about it. I was like,
There's some missing information, right?
What? You don't know about the CP? There's a CP7 or whatever ships like. It was like you don't know about it at
Yeah.
all?
What about your
Huh?
cameras? What about your
Like
surveillance?
nothing?
Shaka,
Like
hello? How are you missing that
okay.
one?
It's like no, we had nothing to do with it. Oh,
Yeah.
then who did?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not suspicious at all. Like just the ships go miss. The ships went missing. They obviously like yo, ships went missing around here.
Right.
So unless it was you guys, there's a third party just like getting rid of our ships. I don't know.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
I
know.
I think so there was like I think there was like two where I wanted to start with the conversation. I for you guys information, if you guys stayed this long, I messaged Braga like, yo, 30-minute conversation, let's go. And
Yeah,
then we
yeah, yeah,
stayed
yeah, yeah, yeah.
mad long like we always do. But like
All
the
good.
I think what's interesting is we're constantly raising the levels of powers, and I think a lot of people sleep on Vegapunk and Egghead's powers, right? And I think throughout this conversation, we respected that. We respected that, yeah, Vegapunk has demonstrated a power that can topple a lot of these things that we were previously afraid of, which is an ode to the Void Century, which is what the legendary Iron Giant. We still don't know how that works. You have an army of those. Yo, I'd probably be terrified too if they have like facial recognition and they catch me lacking one day and send a legendary Iron Giant down on me. Yo, I
Yeah.
might side with the world government. I'm just saying, but like,
You have no choice. But then once you got the opportunity to betray them, you're
right.
gonna take it.
And
You're
then
gonna take it.
we respect that as a power, but throughout this conversation, we just demonstrated that what's more powerful than all of that is information.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you having the right information, you perpetuate that information, you saying the right things, knowing the right things. That is the ultimate power that we're understanding, where it's like Shaka might be hiding stuff, Lilith might be hiding stuff. And look how much of a wrench that's thrown in this chapter. And
Yeah.
it's like, like given this is the setup for the last saga, I can't even imagine, because if this is how we're setting up the Vegapunk arc, right?
Yeah.
Then the world government, they have reigns on the Void Century, but then on top of that, this is the remnants of the people that defeated what's supposed to be stronger than Vegapunk. So they're
Yeah.
going to be crazy, and we're not putting respect on that either. People are sleeping on the Gorosei, and now we got the one name, and now people are waking up to it.
Yeah.
We got Eam and Gorosei being fraud.
Yep.
We gotta throw that out soon. Like,
Think about just the names that's come through the One Piece world. Roger, Whitebeard, Shiki, Big Mom, Kaido, Shanks. And one constant is that the world government, they're still in charge. They still maintain power.
yeah,
As crazy as these people are, these monsters,
yeah, and we
the
don't
world
even
government
they weren't even
still
the
the
ones that took
authority.
out Rox or Roger, Rox, Garp. They took each other out.
You see what
And
I'm saying? Like they're doing their dirty work, and
yeah,
who knows if they spurred that emotion. It's just like a really interesting way in how we don't give the Gorosei enough credit because we don't have enough context. But just off of the strength of the reign and how long they've been in control, right?
yeah, Like
It's impressive.
you said it earlier, right? Like how much did they control the world just by having Kaido in Wano, having Moria at the end of the Paradise, right? Like
Yeah,
all of those things were the Gorosei's choices. The Gorosei basically
they let it
instrumented.
happen.
Yeah, and that actually shout out our conversation on your channel about how Higurashi might be more important. That got shot down, but there's a second part to it where I said that I think that she might have had an inside with the world government, which is how
Yeah.
the CP0 knew about the thing. Which, if you put in that context, Higurashi is the person who put Kaido in Wano. So it's
Hmm.
like, how did that happen?
How is she connected to that?
Yeah, how did the world government? We have to look at the way the world is and realize the world government put all of that into place. How do they do that? Through misinformation, through information. That's it. And
Yeah.
that's a shout out. I don't know if you checked out my Nolan video. A lot of people love that. They say it's like my best video, but the whole
Mhm.
point of it is I said that the world government instrumented the entire Nolan backstory. That from the moment that he left Shandora, he was already slated to die. And there's like proof of it because real quick, it's like when you look at when he left Shandora and
Mhm.
when he landed on his island and when he returned, 5 years went by. You know what happens every 4 years in the world?
Action.
The Gorosei, they have the Reverie.
No, the Reverie.
The
Right.
Reverie. And so what's also crazy is that in order for Nolan to go back to Shandora, it had to be approved by the Celestial Dragons. It had to be approved at the Reverie. So the king went there, said, "Hey, we want to go find this city of gold," and then, hey, knock upstream just happens to come up. So like we don't know the levels to how much they instrumented. And when you think about it like that, I put this seed in there where it's like even Roger's death. That made me question Roger's death because if they could do that to Nolan's death, if they're doing the things that we're saying, like putting Kaido there, what do they think about Roger's death? Was that also done in a way so that the equilibrium can be met? Did they want to
They poison Roger.
poison Roger or the way they did the execution? The people
Yeah.
question why they let Ace go up on the execution when they knew they were going on with Whitebeard, right?
What if Shanks was a plant?
Yo, I don't know if we want to end the call on that, but but I'm
That's
for
why he
it.
was crying because he came to love Roger. He's like, I did this to you.
No shit. Oh god. All right.
And he's living his life in retribution this entire time.
We gotta hold on that one for the next call. But yo, Rago, thanks for entertaining us. Thanks for coming through.
Always a great time, bro. Always a great time.
Yeah,
Nah, this is fun.
and
Remember Shanks is Celestial Dragon, right? Well,
so we're it's getting stronger and stronger
getting
day by
implied.
day. Yeah, yeah,
Was it for Garland or whatever?
yeah. That's we don't know what that means or how that rolls into things, but
Yeah.
it definitely
Something to think
sounds like it.
about.
Yeah, something to think about. Yo, when you say it like that, a plant in the Rogers crew is crazy. Oh no, and he's come from God Valley. Oh no. And he walked up the you planted a seed here, Rago. Now my viewers are gonna be poisoned.
Hey, man. Something to think about.
Yo,
Something to think
that's
about.
crazy. The Godfather Shanks theory, if that's true, it doesn't even need to be that he's a good person doing that. It could just be he's a bad person doing that.
But it's like he's a bad. He did something really bad, but then it's like he's trying to atone. You
Yeah, yeah.
know?
It's the equilibrium thing at the
Yeah.
end of the day. If he's
Yeah.
whatever the world government's doing, it's for the sake of equilibrium, which means it's
Yeah.
like there's obviously bad, but like what evil are they avoiding by
Yeah.
holding up this balance?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, this is kind of I'm not seasoned like Brago is in closing out these calls, but you guys know where to find Brago. I'll be putting his links in the description in the title. You'll see Brago. Hopefully, we'll get more of me and Brago collabing. But yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. So thank you
Thanks for
guys
having me,
for
bro.
yeah, thank you Brago. Thank you guys for listening. Let me know if you guys want more of these discussions on the channel. Um I always have the streams, but sometimes I just got to record it, especially now with the baby here. So like being on a live stream might be
Yeah.
difficult.
Take
Uh
those pockets.
yeah.
I know that.
All
I
right.
know that.
Later guys. Thank you guys for
Peace
watching.
out.
Peace.